Awesome. Well, today is much awaited, at least on my part. It is something that I'm really excited to share with you guys as a resource. Courtney is absolutely amazing. She was introduced to us by Taylor Oldham, which is one of the many benefits of choice is that by being a collaboration of like-minded agents, we're able to share one another's resources and tap into ways that will help us grow and leverage our businesses. And so this month we are really focused on leverage, and that can come in two forms. One is outsourcing and the other is in leaning into our systems. And if you're anything like me, as business owners, our tasks seem to grow exponentially over time, but our time does not. And so we take a step back and we look at everything available to us and we say, well, I know there are systems that can streamline all of this for me, but what are they and how do I make them talk to each other? And oh my gosh, that sounds daunting. And if that's you, but you also know that you have got to take back your time, then you're in the right place. And Courtney is going to kind of talk us through the most common systems that she runs into, how to set up these automations, and how you can really set your business up for success to scale both now and in the long run, so that hopefully you're not waiting until you feel overwhelmed and you can start scaling from the start. So anyway, I'll let Courtney kind of take it away, but thank you guys all for being here. And thank you especially to Courtney for hosting all of this. We have a good series of topics that we're going to hit on today, but as always, we are here for you and your participation. So as questions come up, please pop them in the chat or do the little hand raise icon, and we'll be sure to kind of weave everything in. But Courtney, take it away. Thanks for being here today.
Yes, of course. So, in a second, I'm gonna just kind of tell you guys a little bit about me and then I'll dive straight into everything. But I can't see the chat while I'm doing this. So if you guys have a question, just feel free to like hop on and ask and I can kind of like explain it as I go. So whoops, let me hit the right thing here. Okay, so a little bit about me. So I am a mom first. I have four kids, 5 and under. So that kind of helped spark my need for efficiency and systems. I'm always kind of trying to juggle the kids and then both my husband and I's businesses. So I run the back end of his business, which is a home service business, and then I help people with their systems. That's what I do. So I had started in corporate, and then about 6 months in, I was like, okay, this is not the thing for me. I'm not about this. I don't want to work for somebody else. I want to work for myself. So I told my, well, then boyfriend, now husband, hey, I think I'm going to quit my job that I just spent 4 years, trying to get, and I'm going to start a business. And he was like, okay, if you're sure, like we can do it. So I found being a virtual assistant and we had wanted to travel. So I said, hey, let's just go all in. So we actually bought a camper and we remodeled it and we traveled the country while I was doing the VA stuff. And then a whole bunch of things happened. We got stuck in the desert and all this and ended up landing us in South Carolina where we had some family. And we said we were going to stay for a year. And about 3 months in, we had just got an apartment. We were buying furniture because we didn't have anything. And I found out I was pregnant. And it was not in our plan to have kids yet, but nevertheless, it happened. And so we said, okay, well, we're probably going to be here a while. And here we are 6 years later, and we're still here and loving it and now have 4 kids. So that kind of prompted a lot of my love for getting into the systems even further. And I helped online course creators and coaches with the back end of their business and systems. And then 3 years ago, I dived into my husband's business, who didn't even have a CRM. And I was like, how are you running a customer facing business with no CRM? He had an email and a website I had built him barely. And he used Canva to send estimates, like no automations or anything. And so I stepped in, and now the entire back end of his business is automated, and I only have to do a handful of things. But I went from working like 20 hours a week in his business to now I work 3 to 5 hours a week. And it's only the things I can't automate. So that is kind of the back end on how I got into all this and why I love systems. But I want to spend a little bit of time explaining to you guys some systems we can automate, and then I'm happy to like walk you through and show you some of these things, especially with like Zapier and stuff. But first, we'll kind of talk about a few other things. So a lot of times in business, especially when you're kind of in business for yourself, right? Without systems, like your business isn't going to operate. as most of us know, our businesses can't operate without us being there, which already is hard. But without having systems in place, then you're the only way the business can move forward. So if someone reaches out, like if they fill out that web form or if they text or call you, like if you don't have an automation to at least touch base with them, like they're relying on your time to do it. So what we want to focus on is how can we automate as much as possible, but still leaving some room for that customer journey and the inefficiencies and things that make sense because it's part of the customer journey and not automating everything just to be like a robot, especially now with AI and all the options that are available. So I'm sure you guys are familiar with a lot of things, but there's some, softwares you can leverage. Zapier is a great tool. ChatGPT I leverage for like coming up with content ideas or like email templates, or honestly, anytime I need an idea, I pop it into ChatGPT just to kind of like spark the ideas so that it's still original to me, but it can give me the context. So it's really helpful for that. And then Monday, which I know some of you guys use at least, is a great tool because it has automations built into it and it can be a great CRM. And then also you can leverage like shortcuts like on your phone. That tends to be more on the personal use side, but I have set up like little reminders and things for that. So I want to talk a little bit about the customer journey and how can you identify what you should automate. So the first thing to think about is what's the flow going to be when a customer comes in, and what do you want? Like, what's your goal? I always ask people this when I'm setting up their systems. Like, what is your goal for this? Like, what is the perfect ideal end outcome? And when you sit down and think about it, you could say, okay, when somebody comes in and they fill out my form, and then I want them to immediately get contacted, and then I want them to be able to schedule a call with me or whatever. Like, you think about literally the perfect ideal goal and then you write it out, and then we say, okay, what of these things is redundant? What is happening over and over, or what am I doing in my business constantly over and over and over, and can I make that be more efficient? So a lot of the times it's scheduling things on your calendar, or like repetitive tasks that you have to do for every client, or even just things you have to do in your business on a regular basis. Or like I said, when someone fills out a form on your website, or however your leads come in, like what are those pieces that just constantly happen that we can say, okay, let's add an automation to this to make it be smoother and to go quicker. And then another thing I tell people is to outsource what annoys you. So it may not be something you can automate, but maybe you can outsource it. So for example, I loathe social media. Like, I do not want to create content for it. I don't want to post. So I found an efficient way to create social media for my husband's business, and then I outsourced it immediately to a VA. I said, here's my process, now you do it, because it was not something I enjoyed. So it's not always about the automation, but sometimes it's about the outsourcing too, that gets it off your plate so that you can focus on the other pieces of your business. And then I say, keep some things inefficient. So one thing that we love to do is making sure all of our customers and clients who come through feel like they are the MVP, the number one person in our life, no matter how many other customers we have. So we always send everyone a handwritten postcard. And a lot of that is because we could automate it. There's plenty of tools out there that can automate a postcard when we finish a job, but we want the customer to know that like we do value them. And so we automate as many other things as we can and keep a couple of those things that are really inefficient. And then another thing to think about are like, what are your pain points? So this kind of falls into like the redundancies as well. Like, what are the things that you struggle to keep up with in your business, or what are the things that you feel like you could have to be better? And maybe it's like your follow-up. Maybe you need a system that allows you to follow up with your leads until they hit a certain point in your pipeline, or when a lead first comes in, or requesting reviews. Like, there's a million pieces to the pipeline that you have to think about. And if it's frustrating for you or hard for you to remember to get done all the time, or it keeps slipping through the cracks, then maybe there's an automation that you could put in place to help with that. And then the other thing I tell people is to not be overwhelmed by tech. So you need to choose the right tools. and you need to choose what makes the most sense for you and your business. So I always have recommendations on tools that I would have people use, or like my favorites. But it's not gonna if it's gonna benefit me while I'm building it for somebody, but then they don't know how to use it, then it's kind of like, what's the point? So I always tell people you want to go with simple and you want to go with what works best for you and your business. So it doesn't matter what the tool is as long as you can get done what you need to get done with it. So let's talk a little bit about onboarding. So this is an example of a workflow that you could have. So, well, hold on, let me back up. So whenever a customer has a really positive like onboarding experience, like when they're first coming in to work with you, that helps them to be like, oh wow, that was really smooth and easy. Like getting started with that, man, that made that like they don't even think about it really. They're like, oh, this was really great. This was so simple and this was so easy. Versus if there's lots of hiccups in trying to like get in touch with you and get the documents they need or get the appointment scheduled or whatever it may be, then they're going to remember the negatives more than they remember the positives sometimes. And then that can hinder things. But if they're like, man, this was so easy, I didn't really have to work to make this happen, then they're going to be like, oh, this was great. And then they're going to love you and they become a raving fan. And then they're going to refer you to all their friends. So we always want to focus on how can we make things easy for the customer? How can we make it simple? And how can we make it really positive? So an example of that would be the customer inquires, let's just say you have a lead come in through your website or through social media, whatever, and then you have a form that they fill out. So whenever they fill out that form, you can immediately get them into a workflow. So maybe it's a flow desk form, and then they're in an automated sequence that's just like, hey, thanks so much for reaching out. I'll be scheduling a call with you soon. Here's a little bit about me. And then they get another email in a few days, or then they get a link to schedule that coffee chat with you or phone call, and whether that's in person or, just over the phone. They automatically get maybe a questionnaire that you need more information about what they're looking for, what type of house they want, what area they want to be in, just so you can learn a little bit more about them before you even touch base with them the first time, but they feel like it's just communicating with you directly. So the key to some of these automations is that, like I said before, like you don't want to sound like a robot. You don't want to just like put everything in ChatGPT and trust that the first time it spits something out, it's just going to be this great thing. Like you want to customize it to you so that people think that they're communicating with you directly. And that's one thing that I have done in our business and for other people is the language you use is exactly what you would say if you were reaching out to them for the first time. So when someone reaches out to us for our coatings business, I have the form and then it automatically gets them added to a segment in Flowdesk so that they get an email that says, like, hey, thanks so much for reaching out about your project. I would love to schedule a time for Greg or Darren to come out. What are some days and times that work for you this week? And so it's generic enough that it can go out no matter what, but it's specific enough that they think I typed it right then and there, and I was able to get in touch with them immediately. And so this saves me time, so I don't have to worry about that initial contact. But also, as some of you may know, the quicker you can get in touch with a new lead, the more likely they are to go with you and to work with you, versus if it takes you longer to reach out that first time, then they can be, I mean, I think the stats like 80% of the time you may not even hear back from them or something. So that initial contact is really important because you want to make sure that you're hitting them as soon as they're interested, and like I said, like when they're hot, they're ready to move forward. And then part of that too is that if you don't get in touch with them right away or they don't respond to you, they can be in a nurture sequence so that you can be following up with them without you actually having to remember to do it. Okay, so let's chat about some of the systems that are important to have. So, number one, you want to have some form of lead management or CRM. That is key to keeping your business organized, to keeping you organized. You need to have something, and you can leverage a tool that's specific to realtors. You could leverage, like Monday, or, there's, I mean, a million tools out there. You really have to choose the one that makes the most sense for you. Um, I've obviously done a lot of work for realtors in Monday, so I can say that that one's pretty easy to set up because it's got automations within it that make it easy. The less tech you have to connect, sometimes the better it can be. But it also can allow you to kind of flow into that second point of transaction management so that you can kind of see where people are in your pipeline and what stage they're at, so you know if they're, a lead, if they're actively looking for a home, if they're under contract. It allows you to kind of put people in a custom pipeline that you can create but have it all within the same system. You also want to make sure you have some form of communication management. So a lot of the times this is just your email workflows or a way to automatically follow up with people after the fact. And so I know some people leverage like text message automations. There are some great tools out there for it. I will say I'm not as knowledgeable in that, so I'm not going to speak to those. But like email workflows, I mean, there's a million. Flowdesk, MailChimp, ConvertKit. I mean, there's so many options that you can leverage that keep people moving, and ways for you to set up a pipeline where if your person moves to under contract, they're no longer looking, or if they move to a dead lead, you switch what campaign they're in, and it's a simpler way to kind of move them through without you worrying about the follow-up. And then task and time management. So again, keeping track of the tasks that you need to be keeping up with on a regular basis. And this can be client specific, or it can be just for your business. Did you post on social media? Did you, do networking? Did you reach out to new leads? Or did you do your bookkeeping? Did you like whatever it is? Did you check your email? Whatever the reminders you need, like those are all definitely important to have and to make sure that you're keeping on top of. I know, at least for myself, even being a very organized person, if I don't have it in a list or on a note somewhere to keep me on tap, I forget and lose track of everything. I literally forgot to write down to bring juice boxes for my daughter's Valentine's party last week. And I was like, it wasn't on my list, so it didn't get done. And I like reached out to the teacher. I was like, I'm so sorry. And she's like, it's okay. They're two. They had their water cups. It's fine. And I was like, it's not okay. I'm bringing them juice boxes this week. Like, I feel so bad. Like, they don't know, but I forgot. It wasn't on my list. I didn't do my job of putting it in my to-dos, and it got forgotten. And I mean, that's just part of having a lot to do. When it's out of your brain and on a list to remind you, you don't have to worry about it. You don't want to rely on your own brain to make sure you're getting everything done, because eventually something will fall. And then automated marketing campaigns. So that's kind of like what I talked about earlier, is keeping everyone in its place. I love Flowdesk because it's simple, it's cheap, it's effective, and it has the segments and the workflows. They're really easy to leverage, and they've got forms that you can connect people to. So it takes some of the tech away. So you don't have to stress about the web form connecting to this and that. And it just makes it easy. And then having a review or testimonial collection is key. If you have to remember to ask people for reviews frequently, it tends to be forgotten. But if you can have an automation that goes out for as soon as someone closes, let's say, 24 hours after they close on their house, whatever, however it fits in your pipeline, they get an email asking for a review, or whatever stage it makes the most sense in the process, that they get that email automatically. You don't have to remember to ask them for it. Then it's just going out. This makes this super easy to get the reviews, have them pushing to Google or Facebook or wherever it is you want them to go. I know that when we automated the review collection for my husband's business, we had a 75% increase in reviews. And so all they had to do was tap that they finished the job, which this is automated within the CRM specific to them, but they hit finish on a job and it automatically sent an email out, and it was like, 1 to 5 stars, like rate your service. And we get a review before they're back from the job site almost every time now, because it was automated. I didn't have to remember to ask someone for a review after we finished. And then another thing that you can kind of like automate or thing to make sure you're keeping track of is your analytics. And so there's definitely some different ways to do this. It depends on your system or tech that you have, and I'll say it's a little more specific. So our CRM we use in our business has a bunch of analytics already built in, so I don't have to worry about it. If you're leveraging like Monday or something like that, there's a way to build out a dashboard so that it can be automatically collecting some of these things. You can leverage like Google Analytics, which is a bit more complicated, but you can use it, and it can give you a lot of those numbers automated. It's just the initial setup. Sometimes that can be a little bit daunting, but once you have it going, then you can see your numbers and you can track them. And obviously, you can track them simple too. You can just put them in a spreadsheet, and when you have stuff come in, you can do it that way. But you definitely want something that shows you like what is your close rate? How many leads do you need to talk to in order to, get as many clients as you need or whatever, just so you can kind of stay on top of those goals, but then you know your numbers moving forward, because that's really important in knowing and understanding how to like move forward and grow the business. Okay, so here is an example of like a Zap you could set up. And like I said, I'm happy to show you some more Zaps thanks to Taylor who said I could leverage her Zapier that I set up for her. But like this is one that I set up. So this is a calendar invite that goes to her clients when the closing date is set. So whenever they set the closing date in Monday, which is the CRM they're using, then it automatically creates a calendar event for her, for Kate, for the client. And then if they have a second email, it'll go to that email too. And it'll automatically put on their calendar for the day and time of the closing. And so they don't have to send this to the clients. They don't have to add the calendar to them. It automatically does it. And we set it up for their due diligence date as well, so that it's on the calendar. You know the client has it, and it's like an added layer of protection for it. Okay, so what questions you guys have, or what can I show you more specific to automations or systems that'll help you kind of leverage technology and systems better?
Is Zapier a free service, or are the ones that you showed us, are all those like a monthly payment, or you have to be you have
So
to pay for it?
Zapier itself is free, and most of the Zaps you can do are free. There is a level of some customization that you have to pay for, but it's $30 a month for some of them, and I think I can't remember which ones. It changes. They change it all the time. Sometimes you can use pieces and it's free, and then they change it and you have to pay for it. Most of what I have set up for people, you can leverage the free ones. I think only time you can't is for some of the filters that they use, but I can like
We
yeah, so
and I had to pay for it, but it was just because we set up quite a lot on there that had a lot of different filters that went to it. Very worth it.
yeah, and at the end of the day, it's like how much time are you saving to automate some of these pieces? And is it worth more than $30 a month? So like if you were paying a VA or someone to do it, how long would it take them to do it? I mean, assuming their rate is $15 to $20 an hour, then if it takes them more than 2 hours and it's being done instantly, it can be worth it. So a lot like uh Zapier added on recently was like this is a filter and this is a formatter. So it's allowing us to format the data that comes through properly in a Flowdesk or filter like for this workflow. It's taking when she changes someone from a current client to a past client and automatically moving them into Flowdesk, but we had to set up a filter here. I can show you what it looks like. So the filter will only go if the the status is past client. So this way, any of her other workflows within Monday, like if it's an active lead or under contract or anything, they're not going to get added into her past client workflow in Flowdesk. So they're not going to like get an offboarded email basically.
We do have a number of questions in the chat, Courtney, so I'm just going to go
Okay.
through those real quick. Cindy asked if you're familiar with Follow Up Boss, and then to piggyback on that, Jenna asked, do you have info in KV Core, Suite Assist, and Dot Loop, since those are the ones we use?
So I'm not familiar with Follow Up Boss. I've heard of it, but I'm not super familiar, so I couldn't speak to that one. And then so Sweet Assist currently doesn't have any automations connected to it. That is something I have looked into, and they're not there yet. Dot Loop has some, but it's limited. So like within Zapier at least, I know we were looking at setting some of those up for Taylor originally, and it didn't have, I think you can only create a new client or contract or something within it, but it wouldn't fill in any information. So you still had to do it manually. And then I think you said QV Core, was that the other one?
Yeah, KV Core.
Yes, that I don't know if there's any zaps for it. So the biggest thing, like when you're trying to figure out what to do with the system or see if you can automate it, what I do is I go to create a new zap and I go to the trigger and I search what it is I'm looking for. So like it's this one, right? Okay. So then you click here and you see what can I do within it. So these are the automations that allow you to do. You can trigger a campaign or when a new lead is added to your account. So that's the trigger. So I guess give me an example of something you would want to happen when a new lead comes in. Would you want them to get an email or?
Yeah, sure. For now, let's say that.
Okay.
Kathleen, chime in if there's something specific you were hoping for.
So let's just say the new lead comes in and we want them to get added to a segment in Flowdesk so that they get a workflow of like a new lead workflow. So you can do create, update, subscriber. And you would want to do it as creator update because if it's someone you've maybe brought into your email list before, then it'll update them. But if it's a brand new person, it's going to create them. And then, so this will add them to a segment. So she has a new leads one, so we'll do that. And then I don't have data here, but let's pretend that I have a KV Core account logged in and it's right there. You would select their email from that, and then any information that you could match to it, you would put in there, and then you would hit continue and then test it. So then how that would work is when the new lead comes in here, it would then add them to your segment in Flowdesk, and then your Flowdesk workflow would have like the emails that they would get.
On the note of testing it, do you have to publish it in order to test, or is there like a non-published? Okay, cool.
Yeah, so you can test it. And what I like to do, and it's probably why like when I'm testing things, I add myself in. So I'll have like 5 of me listed in like Monday or wherever, and I tell people like, please just ignore, it's just me. But I put myself in because it will send a real email or example. So I don't like to use other people's data. I like to use my own because I don't want like a random person in a random lead getting the email that I'm testing because they will actually get it. And I learned that the hard way.
Kathleen asked, is there someone who can teach us these things?
Yes, so I actually do these setups for people. So if you guys wanted me to come in and set it up in your business, I'd be happy to like chat and talk through it. Or I do like Ask Me Anything hour where you can pay for an hour with me, and I will literally walk you through how to do as much as possible if you think you get the gist of it, but you just need help getting started.
So obviously the ideal situation is someone has like a general feel for their systems and they have an idea of what they want and they come to you kind of in the middle of everything and you set it all up. In my experience, it feels realistic that it's more so on either end of that. It's like, I have reached my breaking point and I need help right now, or I've got this great idea. I've learned from these past experiences. I don't want this to be me this time. I know that I need to automate, but I don't quite yet know what my systems are. How do you, in either of those situations, how do you figure out what you need? Obviously, you provided that list of things to consider, but especially when it's not something that you've done completely before, like how do you feel out those systems without overcommitting, but also not waiting until it's too late? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
So are you saying like, let's say like I'm a realtor wanting to get these things set up. How would I myself, the realtor, figure this out by myself, kind of?
Yeah, or like how do you know what systems to try if you don't have any systems yet, but you don't want to like start paying for monthly subscriptions and spend a ton of time trying to set up automations and then be like, oh, that's actually not the system for me. And obviously there's always trial and error, but just curious
Yeah.
what your thoughts are.
So I always recommend leveraging other people who are realtors and asking them like, or in your industry, like what have you guys used? What have you seen success with? What software do you like? Because you're typically going to get a lot of different responses, but you'll see commonalities in like, what is it that you use that helped you with this? Obviously, you could do trial and error. A big thing is knowing what you like to use. So if you like simple tech, then it's like, okay, what are some simple systems I can use or simple software? So like I wouldn't recommend getting into like, and I don't know a ton of like realtor specific CRMs, but like the most crazy and like, oh, it does all the things for you type of tech, because typically to get it set up to get to that is very difficult. If you just need something that's going to help you keep track of your people, and that means you put it in a spreadsheet for now to keep yourself organized, you can build automations off of a spreadsheet. Like it's not always about having to have the shiniest like software. It truly is about what do you can use and leverage. And obviously there's going to be a learning curve with everything, but like for example, Monday, they have templates already built into Monday that you can pull in that's realtor specific, and then you can modify and edit. It's already got like formulas and things put into it. It's got like suggestions on how to use it. And there's tons of like tools, articles and things you can leverage. So definitely leveraging some more of the research side to understand what it is you need to use and how to use it. I'd say there's still some of that, like you're gonna have to try it just to make sure that it fits your business and what you want to happen. But again, the simpler you do it, the better, because at the end of the day, you have to be the one running it. And if you don't understand how to leverage and use the software, then you're not going to know what to do when something doesn't work or doesn't connect the proper way. So I guess at least understanding the workflow that you need to have happen at a high level to help you kind of get to that point.
Totally. Thanks. Stacy said, do any of these apps connect to Gmail, or do you need a Flowdesk, for example, to send these messages? Oh, great question.
Yeah, you could set up emails straight through Gmail. So it's not gonna, well, maybe actually technically it can't add. Okay, let me show you this. So a new lead comes in and you want to add them to your Google contacts. That can be done, but I have learned you cannot add them to a Google like label. You have to manually put the label in, because I tried that for probably a month for Kate and them. But you can at least add them to your Google contacts. So you can create a contact in Google and have them added. And then you can add another step here where it sends them an email with Gmail. Oops. So you just click that. And the event would be to send an email. And then it would wants me to sign in, which I can't do at the moment. But then you can just put in like the body and the subject and the two. And it's very straightforward in how it pulls in the information, and it connects with whatever information is pulled in from KV Core. And then you can type out, like it'll say body, and you can just type out the email and pop it right in. And then again, just test it on yourself, and then it sends the email out to them like right after they're a new lead. but you would want to have a filter, which they've now made free, naturally. It didn't used to be free, where, well, actually, no, you wouldn't need a filter in this case. That would be a different one, a different situation. So an example where you would want to filter is like I have a web form that comes into our website, and it's a specific form that's like built on the website. And so anytime that email comes in, I have it filtered by the subject line so that the subject line has to include new website lead. And that way it only emails the new website leads, the email that I talked about earlier, not every single person who emails me, because then they'd all be getting that, hey, when do you want your estimate done email? And that would be weird. So these filters are great for when you want to pull those people out, or like in the pipeline, if you want an automation to happen in Monday and you don't want everyone to get it, only like current clients or past clients, then it allows you to filter just those people.
Awesome. What other questions you guys got? Or what did you come here today for? Was there anything we didn't touch on that you were hoping we could hit on? You guys chime in whenever you feel like it. I did want to circle back to a few things you said at the very beginning, Courtney, which is you talking about, I loved hearing your backstory. I didn't know any of that about you. That's so fun. But I also liked how you mentioned, like, I used to work 15 hours a week and now I work 3 to 5 hours a week. Like, let's take a pause right there and just recognize how many times we see that type of stuff on Instagram as a hook, right? Like, I work 3 hours or 5 hours a week on my business and I make this much money. Like, it all starts with putting in the hours on the front end and then figuring out your systems. So like, just know, first of all, if you want that to be you, we got to get some systems set up, but also know, like, let's be realistic in what it takes to get there, you know? So just know that this conversation is a step in that direction, whether you want that to be you or not. I think it deserves to be said, and you know, you got to put in the work and figure out what works for you. So just wanted to point that out. In that list of things to evaluate in terms of like knowing what you want to automate, I love that you hit on what are your pain points or what feels redundant, because to me, that's when I finally, like, I can see that I need systems in my life, but it's when I'm like, oh my God, I cannot do this task any longer. Or, oh my gosh, I do this every single day. I'm so behind already. You know, like those are the moments where if you're having trouble figuring out what you want to automate, like check in with your nervous system real quick and be like, what am I just completely avoiding because I'm so over it? Or what, just as soon as this email comes through for this category, whatever, what is it that I'm like, it's on my chest of something that feels like it needs to be done. And so just kind of, I liked that as a reference because I think we overlook that. We're so afraid to lean into what's uncomfortable, but sometimes those are the things that can shift our business dramatically. So worth being said. I want to keep this nice and short because obviously it sounds like you guys got what you came for. Is there anything else that anyone wants to ask? When I tell you Courtney has spent tens of hours on our system, she has. And so if there was ever someone that could answer any questions about anything you're going through, she is your gal. She's a resource sitting in front of you. So utilize her if you have questions. Give it one last call.
I have a quick thing I just want to say, or maybe a question. What, Courtney, and thank you for your time, what would you say would be the first place for like me to start to begin if everything is in my head? Like, what would it be Monday to like start digging in and trying to figure out? Because I looked into Monday and then I got so overwhelmed and didn't understand it that I was like, I can't do this. And so I'm trying to like figure out like small steps and where to start to even just like begin to think about automating anything, because it all really, really confuses me. So what would be the first place?
So the first thing that I would do then is to, however it makes sense to you, pen and paper, a Word doc, whatever. And I would outline like, okay, make a list of everything you do on a regular basis. And then make a list of everything you need to happen. Like kind of like I talked about earlier, like when you have a new lead, like what happens when someone reaches out to you? Where are people reaching out to you? Kind of figure out all the pieces of your business that you need to focus on. So, you know, like, okay, people find me on Instagram and through like whatever lead source you have, your website, or like I don't know where all the leads come from, Zillow, KV Core, wherever that is, right? So finding out where everyone comes from, and then how many times are you touch pointing with them? Are you emailing them when they first reach out? Are you texting them? Are you calling them? Do you want them to be able to automatically book a phone call with you? Kind of like thinking through a combination of what you do and then what your goals are. Like, what is it that you want it to be? And then from there, it's okay, how do I identify the system? So, like, Monday is a great tool. And like, Taylor gave me permission to show you guys hers. So, like, she has this kind of setup where, like, she has templates for different things. Like, she has active listings and then her under contract and then people who have closed. And so this is kind of how she keeps herself organized in like what each piece is. And Monday has a template so that when you create a Monday account, you can I have to remember how to get to their templates. Choose from templates. So in your workspace, you can hit choose from templates and you can go down here to real estate and then like real estate CRM. So this actually, Taylor, I'll delete this later, but I'm going to put this in. So you can hit use template, and then this is going to create pieces, but it's automatically going to have like formulas built in. So like this price per square foot is going to populate and different things so that you can like come in and just start using this. And I think it even has a to-do list in here. So like, okay, here's properties, listings, and then sold. And if you want to add a new group, you can just click here. Your contacts. So here this has like potential leads, other contacts, and you can rename these, you know, however you want. It even has a section like, okay, this is how you use this template. And so they have this built out where you can immediately go in and like watch these videos that are specific to this. And then it gives you a dashboard. So here you can see what's the average days that your listings are on the market, how much, you know, what's the value, what's the average price per square foot. And it gives it to you automatically. Like all I did was plug this in, and then you can immediately go in and put your people and your information in here. And then you can create like a new board that's for like to-dos. I'll just leave that. And then you can come in here and literally just brain dump everything you need to do in here. Like you just type in, you know, call leads, go to networking, you know, whatever it is, just put it in there and put your status and when you need it done. And this way you can keep yourself organized, but then you have a place to keep whatever properties you have. You can, you know, keep your leads organized. And even if this isn't like connected in all the ways that I kind of talked about earlier, it's a starting point for you to get yourself organized. And then as you use it, you can kind of see, okay, now I see where it would be helpful if this part had an automation. And then, I mean, Monday in itself has phenomenal automations, and they have tons of, well, they have automations you can build yourself, but they also have templated automations. So that, like, when the status changes to something, you can move them down to a different group or, you know, whatever it is. But if you go around and kind of play around in here, there's, I mean, hundreds of things you can leverage and automate just within Monday. You don't even have to get into Zapier. Hopefully that's helpful.
Very helpful. Thank you. I think that seems like maybe the first place I'd start. And then I'm guessing, Taylor, did you just kind of build off from there with like Zapier and Flowdesk? Like, can you just kind of have Monday working right now as you're trying to figure out everything else and then add like the Flowdesk and all that onto that?
Yeah, so basically, before I met with Courtney, I had some of the stuff on Monday. I didn't have it fully built out. I'd been using like a spreadsheet before putting it all in here. I had Flowdesk somewhat built out, but I wasn't using it to like its full extent. And I didn't have Zapier at all. I had no clue. I still will text Courtney and be like, I have no clue how to adjust this. Help me, please. But basically, Courtney and I sat down, we went through like, what are my daily tasks? What are things like that? Because I was like, oh, I want 1 and 2 and 3 items automated. Okay, great, thanks. And she was like, no, we're going to dive deeper. And so we literally went through every single task from getting a client under contract, past clients, and all the follow-ups, and just figured out what needed to be streamlined, what still needed to be personal. And we sat down and dove into all of that. And I mean, I still use Kate. She's an amazing transaction coordinator and helper, but like this has streamlined her job. All of our emails are in Monday. You literally click a template, it pulls in their name, the address, like it pulls in all the data. Kate reads it and presses send. Like it has been game changing.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And do you create all the copy for all your emails? Because I feel like that would take me forever.
Yes and no. I'm part of like Modern Agent Social Club, so I pull some of the stuff from theirs. I do use ChatGPT for like ideas and stuff, or just to tweak it. But I use it more of like a baseline so that it gets like my creativity started, and then I can go off of it. But pretty much my newsletter is about like a paragraph that I write, and then it's like a checklist, a market update, and just some things that I plug and play. So it doesn't take me too long to do those anymore.
Yeah. Great. Thanks so much, y'all.
Heather, you had a question?
Yes, I was just curious, general costs to get started on something like this, meaning directly working with you on it.
Yes, so depending on what all needs built out, it starts around $500 for me to build out systems, and it just depends on how complex it gets. So for most of it, I'd say it wouldn't go too much over that if I was just like helping create your Monday account and then like linking things to Zapier, kind of similar to like the setup I have for Taylor, it would be right around that.
Okay, thanks.
And then one last question Kathleen popped in the chat, which is the best to start with: basic, standard, pro. Kathleen, I'm assuming you're asking about Monday. If that is the case, I think they've got what, like a 30-day free, and then you have to go pro. The hard part about Monday is when you do go pro, you have to use their lowest membership, which is 3 people. And so when you first look at their prices, they don't look too bad, but then the prices end up being pretty high because you have to commit to 3 users. And so if this is not something that is completely on your radar, I want to be clear, like the purpose of today is not to say, oh my gosh, I'm missing out on systems. The purpose of today is to say, let me evaluate what's working in my business and where do I want to leverage. So if committing to a system like this would be so overwhelming and it doesn't come naturally, or it's not something that like offhand you automatically are all into, I would say don't force this. Let's try to figure out what system would work more specifically to you. Just because I don't want us to just feel like you are adding a ton of costs to your business. But if you do have like an agent that you want to partner with or something, you could always do that. Taylor said I already had Flowdesk on Monday prior to Courtney. Yeah. And I mean, I would just play around. Obviously, a number of these systems have free trials. So maybe just hop into a few of them that have kind of called your name, reach out to a few agents and see how they use them, then dive in, play with it some. And then before those free trials are up, see if it's worth committing to, would be my thought. All right, y'all. Anything else? I think that's about it. If you guys think of anything, give us a shout. I'll be sure to include Courtney's contact info in the email that goes out. It's also in the chat right now. You can visit them online. Scale up. What is it? My chat just went away. ScaleUpCourtney.com. ScaleUpWithCourtney.com. And then I'll send her email as well, but it's Courtney@boomervirtual.com. Thanks for hopping on today, y'all. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Bye.